While our speakers are coming up, let me provide a brief introduction to them. This is the International Networks panel. And our panelists are Carlos Casasus of CUDI and Mike Hrybyk of BCNet. Let me tell you a little bit about both. Carlos is the Director General of CUDI, the private nonprofit corporation that manages the national R&E network in Mexico. Carlos served as the first chairman of COFETEL, the Mexican counterpart of the Federal Communications Commission. And prior to that, he served as Undersecretary for Communications and Technological Development in Mexico's Ministry of Communications and Transportation. Current CUDI members include leading universities and research centers, as well as companies that support research and education in Mexico. And I'd add that Carlos has been a longtime colleague and partner of many of the institutions in California and CENIC as well. Mike Hrybyk is the president and CEO of BCNet. Mike has been an active member of the technology community in the US and Canada for the past 25 years. He has been recognized for his outstanding achievements in helping the development of the Canadian internet, and he pioneered the concept of transit exchanges as a method of linking research and education networks to the local communities, as well as to national and international peers. Mike recently received the prestigious Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal to honor his outstanding contributions to high technology in Canada. And as well, Mike has been a longtime partner of institutions in California and up and down the Pacific Coast. And with that, I will turn it to whoever would like to begin. Carlos?
I don't know if I can get this going. What do I need to do? I'm sorry?
I'm glad I went second.
Unplug and plug back in. Okay.
Do we have a tech support guy here?
He's providing some tech support through here, but
There you go.
all right. All right. Thanks. Thanks for inviting me. I will talk a little bit about what's going on in the Mexican environment for research networking and research and education networking. I guess we have a pretty traditional mission statement, no? Manage, develop and promote Mexico's national research and education network, and exploit our network for applications and services in research and education to benefit our members. I think part of our task in Mexico, no, is basically to increase the digital divide. Basically, if we don't have at least some people well connected, we'll all be in the bad part of the digital divide. No, we need at least the leading institutions to become well connected and to be able to start benefiting from the dramatic technology environment that we're seeing in places like Calight Square. No? We have had a very important development recently. The Mexican government has finally started to realize the importance of academic networking. No? In Mexico, most of the university system, I would say about 2/3 of the higher education enrollment is in institutions that are funded by the government. So the role that the government plays in bringing about the technological transformation is critical. They published a national digital agenda last year, and basically it stated that they wanted to guarantee the connectivity of higher education centers. Connectivity to the National Research and Education Network should be provided to all universities and research centers with bandwidth that is proportional to enrollment and research activities using existing public and private infrastructure. To me, this is a very major milestone in the position of the Mexican government regarding the connectivity of universities. And this has basically translated into 4 large projects that I think are going to transform connectivity, or we hope that they will transform connectivity in the university environment. The first one is the national network for the promotion of broadband. No? Basically, this is a project that started in 2007. At that time, Alejandro Hernandez, who is with us here from now in Televisa, he was at that point in the Mexican government, basically realizing that in order to be able to bring connectivity throughout Mexico, we needed better access to a backbone. The backbone in Mexico has been traditionally dominated by the dominant carrier in Mexico, which is Telmex. And the pricing for a long-distance connectivity in Mexico is very, very expensive. So the Mexican government has a monopoly on the electricity grid. In Mexico, there is the Electricity Commission is responsible for all electric distribution throughout Mexico. And they have been building fiber on the grid, and it's basically a significant amount of kilometers of fiber throughout Mexico, practically at this time empty. And we convinced the federal government to allow us to use the electricity grid for the connectivity of basically universities throughout Mexico. This electricity grid infrastructure was contracted out to the Communications Ministry, and the Communication Ministry basically equipped 40 cities with points of presence throughout Mexico. This has the main triangle of Mexico, Guadalajara and Monterrey, the biggest cities. And basically our main link into the United States in this network goes through El Paso, which I think it's important to hear the presentation from the University of New Mexico. El Paso is going to become an important node in the connection to the United States from the Mexican universities. The electricity grid does not have yet a link in the West Coast, so we're trying to explore ways to getting a link from Arizona, or Nogales, Sonora, but the border is Nogales, Arizona, up into probably Pacific Wave. That would allow us to have a much better topology for the network, having two links into the United States. Basically, on June 10, 2010, we signed an agreement with the ministry to allow the use of this infrastructure without a cost by the National Research and Education Network. The problem here is basically the last mile connectivity into this backbone. The Electricity Commission considers electricity towers a national security risk, so we have had very limited success in putting radios into the 40 points of presence of the Electricity Commission. So we convinced the Mexican Congress to provide a limited fund with about $5 million to build a secondary point of presence in each of these 40 cities and basically build an initial fiber connection into the Electricity Commission POP, where we could basically put up a tower and receive many universities in this infrastructure. We're currently in the process of bidding 270 kilometers of urban fiber in these 39 cities to allow for the construction of these secondary POPs. More recently, the government has decided to speed up the connectivity of university campuses throughout Mexico, and it tendered last October two commercial providers the build out of 1,100 links to campuses and hospitals and selected government institutions to connect to the national network. Basically, the idea is to establish a central connectivity toward a commercial provider and connect the commercial provider to the national backbone. Basically, the numbers are pretty impressive. It's basically they will connect federal universities, research centers, health centers, centrally coordinated higher education institutions, many of the National Center for Culture and the Arts throughout Mexico, junior colleges, state universities, and some ministry sites. No, this is 1,100 sites that will be connected, and the bandwidth that will be contracted is a dramatic increase in the amount of internet bandwidth that will be demanded. No, probably this will by itself almost nearly double the current bandwidth of terrestrial internet in Mexico today. No? So it's a very large project. Finally, another project that has hopefully a very important impact into the connectivity of Mexico is the creation of an net connection point, an IXP. Mexico was probably one of the only major countries that did not have a point of interconnection. And basically, the reasons here is, again, the huge control of the dominant player that has never been willing to peer or interconnect on reasonable terms in Mexico. So with the increase in demand from the university system and the willingness of the content delivery network providers, we can now justify establishing an internet exchange point in Mexico. We basically created a non-profit corporation to run the first IXP, and this was launched last December, and hopefully we will be able to start having traffic probably in 2 or 3 more months. Basically, also these activities will be controlled by the CUDI NOC. We will be providing NOC services for the whole effort. And basically, we hope that once we have a better network, we will be able to develop many more applications throughout the network. We think that we should work on federated identity, e-science infrastructures. We are trying to develop a national video conference network, cloud services, rich content distribution, digital libraries, video repositories, MOOCs, electronic textbooks, and increase the possibilities for international scientific collaboration in many areas, especially taking advantage of the nearness to the efforts here in California in oceanography, seismography, astronomy, etc. We're also very enthusiastic about the possibilities of the Net Plus services, the portfolio growth in the Internet 2 community. Basically, very many services are being now developed through the Net Plus ecosystem, and we are actively collaborating in a global partners program with Internet 2 to develop a common contracting base for many of these Net Plus services. Hopefully, we will have this year at least 5 services developed on a global framework with the same type of contracts that we could deploy pretty soon in Mexico. I think we're very excited. Obviously, the challenge is very big. The Mexican government has not distinguished itself for being a very efficient runner of infrastructures, but certainly the commitment to connect these very many institutions is certainly providing a huge excitement throughout the community. I mean, our universities are really looking forward to being able to start getting some real connectivity in their campuses. The differences are huge. Probably we're talking that our best connected university, probably UNAM, today has 3 gigabits of added total bandwidth for about 250,000 students. When you talk about UCSD with a 100 gigabit campus, I mean, the numbers are abysmal. So hopefully we will start having some of our universities start jumping the digital divide into the right side of the digital divide. Thank you. Laptop switch.
That was great, Carlos, and this theme of high-speed networks, but I like the urban network growth and exchange points. That's something near and dear to my heart, and really happy to see Mexico moving along in these areas. So, and that'll be some of the theme today in terms of British Columbia. BCNet's the British Columbia regional network, and Canary is the national network, the Canadian Network for Advancement of Research, Industry, and Education. I think I actually remembered the acronym for a change. So BCNet's been around for 25 years. I've been around for 20 of that. So what I'd like to do is give you a brief overview of BCNet today, talk a little bit about Canary, talk about the network and the value, which you all probably know. I have only 3 slides on issues, but I think those are the important things, so I'll try to speed through most of the other stuff. So we're a not-for-profit consortium and member-led, member-driven, the usual stuff. We changed our mission statement to be shared IT services a couple of years ago. Our tagline says that. We don't even have networks in our mission statement anymore. So it's really been a sea change for the organization over the last 2 years, and not without many arguments around the table, by the way, right, over the last 5 years. So that third green box there is pretty important, IT solutions for mutual technology challenges. And that's, again, been a member-driven, hate to say it's PBS type of thing, but it's just like CENIC, we're member-driven, and that's what's been causing the change. And the fourth one, equity and common goals. So we don't want tragedy of the commons, but we definitely want to see things across our rather large province be distributed a little more fairly. So, but the anti-digital divide message is a good one too. So you have to have excellence, but also equity and common goals is a big thing. Just a brief thing, we're mostly member funded. We get some money from the provincial and federal government, and then a large part of it is from add-on services to non-university types. And what I mean is the research labs, or we run exchange points. We get some revenue from that. So we have actually a fairly decent amount of external revenue from higher ed, separate from higher ed. The part that's provincial and federally funded, the province gives us about 10% of our funding as an equalization payment to make sure that the far reaches of the province are equally served as the Vancouver area. So we're very careful to say that funding does not go into operations. It goes strictly for circuits that hooks up Prince George. So for auditing purposes, we're very clear about that. The federal funding that we get is Canary will sometimes give out one-time money, sort of the equivalent, I guess, of BTOP or whatever you guys get in terms of some one-time. So we tend to amortize that out, and we use it for typically fiber purchases. So that, again, very little of the money goes to operations. Our management team's distributed, and we've added a shared IT services manager. We don't have directors, so that should say something about the low overheads. There's only really 4 employees. Everything else is contracted back out to the members. So Marilyn Hay is our network engineering manager, one of the best around, and her team is at UBC, but we also have FTEs at University of Victoria, University of Northern British Columbia, and Thompson Rivers University. So it's a distributed network engineering team. Client services manager, Clarence, is another employee, so am I, and Kieran Ovick's at Simon Fraser, Dean Crawford's at University of Victoria. So again, one of the hallmarks of BCNet is put as little in the middle as you possibly can, keep the overheads low. It's that front range gigapop, I think, mentality to keep the cost down. We have core members. Some members are more equal than others. The core members pay most of the money and get more of the say, so I won't bore you with all of them, but it's a fair distribution. I just wanted to point out that we do interconnect even BC Hydro, which is the electric company north. The healthcare system is interconnected, and I don't think we have the libraries in here, Louis, but just recently the library consortium is connected to us, and I'll have a little bit more to say about that when I get to the network map. So the research members are, we have a usual board of directors from everybody. We've got a 10 gig network across the province, 2,000 kilometers. It's done with Canary. I think I've talked about that before, so I won't go through it in detail. So there's our map of British Columbia. When we talk about rural and remote, let's just say Prince George, that really isn't an accurate map, right? Prince George is halfway up the province, right? So I mean, we think of Prince George as maybe being rural remote, 50,000. Actually, Fort St. John, which is up in the corner there, you know, is really, really remote. Or Prince Rupert Terrace, which is sort of maybe to the left there, the last little inlet, which is going to be a major oil and gas LNG hub. Fort St. John is a major oil and gas kind of area. And yes, we do have community colleges up in that area. So right now, this is the advanced network. So this is just for the university research infrastructure. If I included PLNet, the K-20 network, which we're going to be more integrated with going forward, it would go to every part of the province. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The way we build our network is where you see a yellow dot there, except for the one in Calgary. We build an exchange point first. So we build the exchange point, we partner with the municipality to build fiber to that exchange point, and then we glue the exchange points together. So rather than build a backbone to every university and then, or wherever nearby a city, we actually try to integrate the municipal networks with the institutions and then build the backbone from there. So it's, I call it an inverted model from the usual build the backbone, hope they all come. We find that the intercity links are actually the cheapest piece, right? The most expensive piece is ubiquitous local fiber, hardest to build too. So we've put together local municipal consortia in each city. So we have the Kamloops Community Network. We have the Prince George Advanced Network Task Force that we support. There's a Kelowna Municipal Fiber build. Vancouver is like Boston. It's a whole bunch of municipalities. It's hard to explain, but you know, probably 20. So to get fiber across the city of Vancouver, you could potentially have to create 20 different municipal agreements. So we've sponsored that crew, and we give them coffee and donuts and pull out their fiber maps once a month. And the whole reason is that when we have to buy or build fiber on our own, it can cost in the millions. In Vancouver, we probably put at least $4 million into local fiber, if not more. In Kamloops, where we've had almost the equivalent fiber kilometer mileage, because we've done it with the city, it's cost us about $150,000. So when in Prince George, it was $80,000, right? These small, mid-sized towns with a little bit of leadership, right, and with rights of way, et cetera. By the way, we don't have large amounts of BTOP money. We don't have any, you know, so this is all business case oriented. You know, it works. One of the great, I got the Queen Jubilee Award, and Rick Adams from the city of Coquitlam's getting one as well. In Coquitlam, they've built a model called QNet, where they've interconnected all of the municipal facilities, and then for $500 a month anywhere around the city, you can get 2 strands of fiber. And the biggest users of that fiber, a little segue here, have been actually some of the carriers trying to put 4G networks up. So it just, you know, the landscape's changing. I'm just here to tell you that that Muni networks, right, are just, I think, a really great place to be, and has huge advantages for not just the university sector, but for telecommunications sector in general. And even some of the incumbents are starting to come around, seeing that CapEx is thin, right, and maybe we can leverage some of this stuff. So anyway, there's good news here, but we're working really hard. If you think organizing universities in one group is a problem, try getting all the municipalities together to try to agree. So at any rate, one other side thing about libraries is that when you take the model of building an exchange point, right, oddly enough in Kamloops in Prince George, it was in City Hall, which just happens to be downtown and a nice place where all the fiber interconnects. One of the side effects is that the hospital's right next door, and so is the library. So the libraries actually, in some cases, have better connectivity, easier access than some of the community colleges and universities, just as an outflow of this model, right? So the communities then love it, right? They're just huge supporters of this, no matter where you go. So we want to expand this out, and we've got some support. I want to go into Canary for a minute. The great thing about the Canary, the national network model in Canada, is that 1,100 institutions are connected. It's a ubiquitous network. So there's not a research one versus everybody else kind of mentality. Every university and college in Canada is connected. So that's 1 million, seats and the usual. So there's the map. Of course, most of the population is near the U.S. border. Those are 10 gig links. I don't know whether we'll get to 100 gig. If you see the blue lines in British Columbia over here, that's 2 strands of Bell fiber that Canary owns, but we put money into. So we have a 72 wavelength Sienna system that is shared. BCNet has the rights to 30 of the wavelengths, and Canary's got the rights to 42. We've only lit up 4 or 5 each, so we just have the rights to each, but it's 100 gig capable, so we just haven't put the hardware on the ends yet. But the nice thing about this particular approach is that we don't have to do forklift upgrades on it, so in order to get to the next level. So we really, really love this sharing model, and think of BCNet as being sort of the local milk run and Canary as being the express run. So Canary cares about getting from Calgary to Vancouver to Seattle, maybe to Victoria. We care about getting everywhere else and dropping off a lot more circuits locally. So it works for both of us. Canary's got some different goals, I think. It's the research network, working with provincial partners, and the primary investments from the Government of Canada, $500 million since 1993, currently funded to the tune, and if Jim Roche was here, he would correct me, I'm sure, $22 million a year, I believe. That was the national backbone there. So that's just the national circuits. And remember, BC has a shared scheme. But if we added the circuits from all the provincial networks as well, that would be the kind of coverage. So yeah, we're getting L'Orange in Saskatchewan, Prince Albert, Saskatoon, all the rest. Let me tell you a little bit about what's happening in each province, hopefully in the interest of time. Alberta's got a network called SuperNet, where basically they've built fiber to every town in Alberta. And this goes back 5 years prior to BTOP, right, or anything. So they really are one of the leaders in this area. This wasn't part of the regional advanced network. It was sort of done with Bell, and I'm blanking on the name of the other small provider that did most of the work. The idea is that anywhere in the province, you could get 100 meg for $400 a month. So, and I think that's been largely delivered, certainly very innovative for its time. There's a IXP that's opening up in Calgary that Cybera, the network there, is championing. That is a theme you'll hear, is that we want IXPs in every province. We don't have them yet. In BC, we've got 6 of them, so we want them to grow, but we actually want lots of IXPs, again, integrated with local networks. In Saskatchewan, they do have that link to L'Orange, which is pretty cool, so, and Prince Albert. In Manitoba, we have MRNet and the exchange point going into Winnipeg, and 10 gig link going to Brandon up north. So we're, in terms of rural and remote, we are really pushing 10 gig out to as many remote places as we can get it. In Ontario, we have Orano, which has a $30 million investment from the provincial government to build, or has built a fairly ubiquitous 10 gig network, probably one of the best in the world. So they're rolling along. I think RISC is in Quebec is probably one of the best operated networks in the country. Again, with lots of dark fiber through the province. They've partnered with second-tier telcos. This goes back 10 years to build lots of fiber around, and again, ubiquitous 10 gig networking around the province. So they've done an awesome job. I think in the Maritimes, we're a little more challenged, both organizationally and with infrastructure, although there is fiber in New Brunswick and around Newfoundland, and a link to Newfoundland, but Labrador, but that is a problematic area, and I think Canary will be putting a little more funding into that. We'll see. Finally, we have all our links to the south, to Seattle, Chicago, and New York. I think that's since the dawn of the internet, all of Canadian connectivity went south. In fact, the first internet connection from Canada, well, I think University of Toronto will argue this point, went from University of British Columbia to University of Washington. It was a 9600 bit per second link. So that was the first, and that was circa 86, I think. The goals, Canary gets money from Industry Canada, which is kind of like getting money from the Commerce Department here. So it has to, the goals have to align with innovation and the digital economy. So there's not a Department of Ed or the equivalent of an NSF per se. There's CFI and NSF and NSERC, which hand out money that are obliquely funded by Industry Canada as well. But just say the commercialization piece is important. I just wanted to underscore that. This is the usual growth rate. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. So 3 things that Canary tries to do is the network, obviously, technology innovation, and then commercialize innovation through DARE. And what DARE is, in a nutshell, is a small cloud-based service that's out of Calgary that allows any SME to come in and get a slice, some processors and storage to build applications. So I think about $2 or $3 million a year goes into supporting that. But it's free. I think they're going to be asking for contributions from the users coming in. But again, it's to try to get that sector moved up. So Canary's got kind of it has to try to help the universities and the research network, but it's got a commercialization bent. So it makes for an interesting set of issues. Canary, just like Internet 2, is broadening its service portfolio. I won't go through all of them, but you can see the usual suspects there. Technology innovation, I think I talked about that already. Testbed. Let's get back to BCNet for a minute. So some of our current projects is that we've built a complete fiber ring in Vancouver, and also another one in Victoria, which is over on the island. We actually own that fiber and are in the process of partnering with someone else to potentially take it over. But one of the innovative things that we do on the network services side is that we've built our own configuration management database that's going to be open sourced. Most people use spreadsheets or, I don't know, baling wire and knives to do network management. We think we've got a whole tool for that, and we'll be open sourcing it. We have a client portal that I just want to show you a bit on. Might as well show it off, what the heck. Here. First of all, we've got a member area in our wiki that basically is dedicated to all the members, but the client portal looks like this, and you get a real-time weather map, so very nice. People seem to like it. So just a very quick type of thing there. And I don't know about you, but fiber optic cable management packages are, in short, it's amazing how many campuses don't use them and how we don't have them. So I know the Quilt's gone out for an RFP on it, and we've done the same thing. So Common fiber optic or cable management is something that we're moving onto as well. So we are a fiber asset holding company at the end of the day. We've invested about $14 million. It's worth around 35, depending on how you value it. In our annual report, we try to calculate the savings. What we mean by this is if UBC, which has 24 strands going out to a campus, and we've got something on the order of 5 10 gig links and 5 1 gig links. I forget the exact mix. They're a candidate for 100 gig upgrade, but we're trying to do it cheap right now. We did market comparisons, and we figured it was a 50% savings across the board. So we talked about the 7.2 wavelength thing, and our usage is going up. We don't deliver transit. This is the important piece, just like CENIC of what we do. We do not deliver transit across the backbone. We deliver it in those 6 transit exchange points as we talk about. And we want to try to lower the price of getting transit in Prince George without backhauling it. Why is that important? Because if we just backhauled it and our network goes down, that campus is off the air. So instead, we have multi-homed transit connections in every city, plus the research network. So there's 3 ways out, right, even for the University of Prince George. So they haven't been off the air. Well, there was a fiber cut that took out all the fibers going into all of Prince George because it goes up the Fraser Canyon. But that was the only reason they were off the air, right, in the last 10 years, I think. So in Vancouver, it's been similar. So our uptimes are pretty awesome. And then we use peering in each of those exchange points to divert traffic. We are the largest internet user in British Columbia besides the carriers themselves. UBC does the 24/7 operations. So, and I think we'll see other, I'll show you our services model in a bit. I expect that NOC to service other institutions going forward. So our services. So we're now, that's a little bit on the network side. What about shared IT services? There's the usual reason. I want to spend a little time on this slide. We have a model called the facilities host and service operator model. So the way we run the network, for example, is that it's housed, the core of the network is housed, let's say at Simon Fraser Harbor Center, downtown Vancouver. It's in the Simon Fraser campus. But UBC is the service operator, right? So there's a facilities host, so we pay rent to Simon Fraser, and we pay UBC to operate the network. So that we're generalizing that model for any service. So there's a place you have to have it to host it, physically put it, and then you have the people and equipment, it takes to run it. So we have those two pieces of every service, and then the members pay. So we have contracts with service operators, contracts with facilities hosts, and contracts with members. So basically BCNet increasingly is just a service integrator that holds a whole bunch of contracts, right? That's really, if there's a dry, boring theme here, that's it, right? So we have to get really good at specifying these contracts, making it friction-free so it's easy to do, so these services can spin up and all the agreements and the service operator and facilities hosts are in place. That's really our job, right, at the end of the day. And yeah, so this is the portfolio services. I'm not going to, well, I'll spend time on just one. Virtual router. Here's a network service that we use our Juniper 960s for. We actually, I wish when SDN comes, this will be more generic. We'll have, we won't be all buying Cisco boxes anymore. We'll have just a giant cloud-based network virtualization facility. But at least with the Junipers, you can do this with 16 of them. So we actually split up the Juniper 960 into virtual pieces, and we sell that on a monthly basis to especially small institutions that can't really afford to buy a full route capable Cisco box. So it's been extremely popular. In fact, we provide this virtual router service to Canary. So the Canary doesn't have to put a router in Vancouver. And We'll see. I'm just really excited about having a virtualized network service that's basically an IT service that can be used for the campuses and actually save money. Hardware, software procurement's the other big one. I'm going to go through them a little bit. So the service areas, generally there's four: procurement, systems, network, and communications. Procurement, we've decided on a model, and the biggest bang for the buck is basically in the procurement area. So how do we do it? We've outsourced it to an integrator, and that integrator basically we've hired to negotiate contracts with all the software firms out there, and even negotiate and run RFPs on the hardware side. So Longview's doing it, and we did an RFP for that integrator through UBC, and they've done an absolutely spectacular job so far. So that's one piece of it. Making sure we can do procurements easily and with confidence, and then do tracking of it. And again, we've handed that to Longview, and we're pretty happy. We do our own procurements too outside of that, and we have the option to do it, but it's nice to have a third party to help. The second piece that we've figured out recently is that our procurement policies and procedures had better be up to snuff. And it better be aligned with all the institutions, because basically they are sole sourcing through us. So if we don't have those agreements between the procurement officers at each institution and BCNet, it can become a real nightmare. So luckily we have a bunch of CFOs on our board in our finance committee. We have a procurement committee that's going to that's being put together, and that they will actually oversee all of the RFPs and RFIs that are going through the door. That doesn't mean they'll manage them, they'll just take a look at them. So increasingly we are now, BCNet, again, another theme, we are kind of the Uber IT group right across the system in many respects. And the question is, and I don't have the answer, is how do you best organize that, right? We're trying to kind of fight our way through it. In terms of systems, there's colo, storage, and VMs. UBC's got a VMware VM system on-demand type thing that they're spinning up in the spring. $400 a year, $500 a year per VM with some minimum storage and whatever. We're going to white label that as part of BCNet. They will be the service operator. Again, all the contracts will be done, and that'll be available system-wide. So we expect that to happen pretty quick. The cool thing about this model is when a campus comes up with a service, if we can white label it, we'll do it, and we can get it available to the system really fast, right? So also, hopefully, it incents the SFUs and UBCs to actually develop these things and get them going. Network, I talked about. Finally, communications, we've got UCS as a big topic, how to do collaboration and video conferencing. Again, in the interest of time, I'll try to speed up here. We did a major storage equipment procurement with NetApp, big success, which allowed us to do a data safe snapshot service. We're in an earthquake zone like you are, so for $300 per terabyte per year, an institution can snapshot and put their stuff out of Thompson Rivers University, right? You can get your own VLAN and gigabit link right into the NetApp storage facility, and it looks like it's on your campus directly. So again, we think it's competitive. We don't like MCUs, they're expensive. So video, I know CENIC uses, we've been using Blue Jeans. We're reevaluating this, but for a small province where we need to get lots of different types of connectivity in, Blue Jeans was a real cheap way to get it in, and we're really happy with it too, by the way. So instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, we spend 30 or 40 grand a year, and we make it available to everybody effectively for free, at $1,500 a year per institution or something. I forget, something minimal. The take rate, especially amongst the smaller schools, have been huge. You need a browser or Skype or whatever. Again, we may add video or something like that to the thing, but the point is that we look at these at Blue Jeans as a service operator, and every 2 years we'll reevaluate and see where we're going. So this model applies to cloud-based services is the point. So we have a $7 to $10 million proposal in front of the provincial government for a shared data center. Nobody has any money, so that's part of the problem. We may finance this ourselves. The idea is that SFU's got a bunker on Burnaby Mountain that could be used as a data center. We have agreements from all the university presidents that we're not going to build data centers anymore. So that's, we haven't forgotten about this, but we're still looking for the cash. So RUCBC endorsed that. That's the university presidents. They actually signed a letter endorsing this, which for any IT project is a major win. What are the issues? For national, very quickly, Industry Canada wanted Canary to cost recover its services. Now, the national network cost $8 to $10 million a year. That's right. Those red lines cost $8 to $10 million a year. Not only that, the federal government currently funds all the research projects, just like NSF or whatever does here. However, there's no overheads allowed, and CFI or NSERC basically just funds grad students and some equipment. So why should you fund that project and then cost recover against it? You know, the accounting is circular, right? I wrote a paper that, you know, I did the usual arguments. It wasn't just me. A bunch of us wrote did a significant amount of writing on this one. There's not enough money here to worry about. Why go through the accounting? So I think we're going to prevail there. We'll hear in the next week. So at any rate, I'll just say the last 3 months have been arguing about that. How we fund Canary going forward is kind of interesting, and what the governance is going to be like. I won't bore you with the details there, but just like Internet 2 or NLR or whatever, there are governance discussions. How do we get to 100 gig and network improvements and expansion? There's a bunch of very active groups on digital infrastructure and repositories. There's Compute Canada, which is another organization that is the amalgamation of all the supercomputing centers or clusters around the country. And CFI and Industry Canada has said, we're not going to let this proliferate anymore. There will only be a fill-in-the-blank, you know, some optimal number. So Compute Canada has hired a new executive director, Bill Appleby from Australia, and looks very good. I expect Canary and Compute Canada to come together and work together much more closely going forward on this whole portfolio. At least I hope so. There's also a lot of work being done on repositories in terms of provenance and curation, just like Larry was talking about. And then there's the National Above the Net Shared Services. I'll just have one comment there, is that I know Canary is listed as a global partner, but I think one of the things we want to look at first nationally is what services do we want, and then how do we integrate with Internet 2, rather than we'll just take what Internet 2 has. So I think we have to do a national discussion first on what this thing looks like, which leads me to my next thing. Shared IT services across post-secondary. Why are we doing this? Well, the provincial government has said to the university presidents, you will cost share, right? I mean, and no, I know I'm probably webcast here, but or am. So, well, nobody will listen to this back in Victoria. Actually, the deputy minister got the presidents together and said, duplication is no longer, you know, on the cards. You know, I'm going to cut your budget, and you're going to have to show the savings, audit. A little bit funny there. Audit, you know, show where you've generated the savings from sharing services. Whether you're buying pencils or IT, it doesn't matter. So there's been a lot of scurrying around the last 2 years on this. I think the good thing from a BCNet and IT perspective is it's made everybody come together and actually get serious about it. Nothing like having a common enemy to make everybody work together. So I'll say that really has been a positive. Otherwise, I think everybody would have kept doing their own thing and not looked at anything innovative. So sometimes even a trumped-up external problem can sometimes be a good thing. I still contend that the definitive paper on what the role of a national, provincial, or campus is in shared IT services has not been written, and there's been a lot of scurrying around, but there has not been any agreed upon approach that I can find that says, okay, this is the way we're going to roll it out. This is how the contracts work, in an integrated way. There's been Internet 2 with Net Plus. There's been, everybody's got their own thing. I don't think that's going to be sustainable unless we think about it in a serious way at the regional network level, campus level, and national. And so we have to come up with some sort of approach. Like, what services are best delivered regionally versus the campus? I'll just give you that one. Answer that question for me, I'll be really happy. I don't have the answer. I just have the question. I don't know. But if we work across purposes, it's going to be even worse, right? We have an issue with our growing service portfolio. Do we hire people? Does this subcontracting thing manage to scale? I don't know. More questions than answers. Dedicated integrated digital and research infrastructure, everybody talks about that. Right now on our network, the provincial government, in a very, very good thing, said, let's aggregate every school and college with the government network so that we can provide ubiquitous service. The problem is, like in Mexico, it's provided by the government with sort of a, everybody has to be in whether you like it or not. And it has a backbone and firewall mentality that not much kind of gets through. So the carrier, TELUS, the incoming carrier, won the bid for moving that network to the next level. It's basically, it'll be an MPLS network and be virtualized. So what we're trying to do is make the argument that a post-secondary piece of that virtual network will actually be operated or integrated highly with BCNet, so it'll look like one consistent offering. The good news is it'll look more like SuperNet in Alberta at the end of the day than the current scheme. So we want to see a ubiquitous network to Fort St. John, Prince Rupert, wherever, and work with the provincial government and the carrier to get to those really hard to service places. We're making some progress there. BCNet has been traditionally operated by the research universities. Now that we're more ubiquitous with the colleges, we have to get things going. And then, yeah, we'd like 100 gig. I think we've got other things to do right now. So we'll add the hardware and do it at some point. We were behind on 10 gig too. One last thing, our conference is on the 30th and the 1st. Sherilyn usually comes up. If any of you can make it, it's great. So I'll just have one little, I know I'm over time, but oops, let me just, a quick thing. Oh, great. Wrong one. Conference program. That's your conference. We have Andrew Blum, who's the author at Tubes. Has anybody seen that book? Have him come. Well, it's How the Internet Works and the Importance of Exchange Points. He's actually written a popular kind of press book on it, so he's quite good. So we try to get people to understand these things. So he's our keynote. Anyway, thanks for having me up again, and great meeting. Thanks.